Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. Have you ever been in a situation where a simple mistake completely changed your life? Well, let me tell you about a young woman named Emma who found herself in just that situation. It all started on a chilly evening in New York City. The soft hum of conversation filled the air in an elegant restaurant. The soft clink of silverware echoed as people dined, enjoying the warmth of the intimate atmosphere. But for Emma Brooks, sitting there, trying to keep her nerves in check, the whole place felt like a foreign world. Her second-hand dress, scuffed shoes, and the tremor in her hands as she held her phone told her all she needed to know. She didn't belong here. The reflection of herself in the glossy window outside only made it worse. The promise she made to her best friend Jenny to go through with this blind date was the only thing keeping her rooted in the moment. Emma muttered to herself as she scanned the tables, heart racing. Table 7. Table 7. She whispered, trying to calm herself, but the nerves wouldn't settle. She spotted him, sitting at the back of the room, a sharply dressed man, dark hair neatly styled, his attention focused on his phone. Emma took a deep breath and forced a smile, walking towards him. "Hi, you must be Kevin?" she said, her voice betraying the anxiety that churned in her stomach. The man looked up, startled. He blinked a few times, momentarily unsure of how to respond. Hi Emma," he finally said, still trying to make sense of the situation. Emma, assuming his hesitation was just due to shyness, slid into the seat across from him, trying to make the situation less awkward. "I know, this is weird," she said with a nervous laugh, trying to fill the silence. "Jenny told me you might be a little shy, so don't worry. I can talk enough. For both of us." The man opened his mouth to correct her, but hesitated, glancing at his phone where a message from his business associate popped up. Their meeting had just been canceled. Something about Emma's earnest smile made him pause. She was so different from the polished, sophisticated women he usually encountered. She seemed genuine, down to earth. With a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips, he decided to play along. "Right, blind dates are something else," he said softly. As they settled into their conversation, Emma felt her nervousness start to ease. The man was easy to talk to, and his soft smile made her feel comfortable despite the tension in the air. She talked about her life, her struggles with paying rent, and her dream of opening an art studio. For the first time in a long time, she felt heard. She looked at him with a thoughtful expression, saying, "You're not what I expected. Jenny said you were reserved." He chuckled softly. "Well, Jenny was right about that," he replied. "But you're easy to talk to." Emma beamed at the compliment, her tension easing further. She was about to ask him more about his work when suddenly her phone buzzed. "Hey Emma, where are you?" "I'm at table 7. Looking forward to meeting you, Kevin." Her heart sank as she read the message again. Her face turned bright red, and she looked at the man across from her. "You're not Kevin," she whispered, almost as if to herself. His smile faltered, and for a brief moment, guilt flashed across his face. "No, I'm not," he admitted. Emma stood up abruptly, her stomach twisting. "Oh my God," she muttered, her face burning with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, I sat at the wrong table. This is so embarrassing." She grabbed her coat and turned toward the door, her face a mix of regret and panic. "Wait," the man called out, standing too. "Emma, it's okay really." But she was already rushing out of the restaurant, the heat of embarrassment rising in her chest. As Emma hurried out of the door, Liam Parker, the man she had just mistakenly met, stood frozen for a moment, watching her leave. His thoughts raced. He had intended to correct her from the beginning, but something about her, her sincerity, her openness, had stopped him. He couldn't quite place it, but a strange feeling had settled in his chest as he watched her rush away. He didn't know why, but the thought of never seeing her again bothered him more than it should. Back at her small apartment, Emma flopped onto her couch, burying her face in a throw pillow. Her heart was still racing from the mortifying moment. Jenny, her best friend, peeked over her laptop, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "That bad, huh?" Jenny asked, setting aside her work. Emma groaned, nodding. Worse. I sat at the wrong table. I had an entire conversation with some random guy thinking he was Kevin. Jenny couldn't hold back a laugh. What happened? Emma sat up, recounting the evening, her words tumbling out in a rush. He was nice. Really nice. Actually, funny too. But then I got the text from the real Kevin, and I ran out of there like an idiot. Jenny chuckled. Sounds like a rom-com setup. Emma groaned again, grabbing a pillow and hiding her face. I just hope I never see him again. Jenny raised an eyebrow. Are you sure about that? You said he was nice. He was, Emma admitted, lowering the pillow slightly. But it doesn't matter. I made a fool of myself. The next morning, back at his penthouse, Liam Parker sat in his office, distracted, scrolling through emails. His assistant, Claire, was reviewing his schedule when he suddenly interrupted her. Cancel the lunch with Rothman, Liam said, his voice absent. Claire paused, glancing up at him. You've been distracted since last night. Did something happen? Liam didn't answer right away, his thoughts elsewhere. The image of Emma, her laughter, and the warmth of their conversation lingered in his mind. Something about her made him want to know more. He couldn't shake the feeling that their paths were meant to cross again. But for now, Liam Parker didn't know that his life, and Emma's, was about to change forever. Stay tuned for the next part of this story. The next morning, Emma sat in her small apartment, her thoughts still tangled from the night before. She couldn't believe what had happened. She hadn't just sat at the wrong table. She'd had an entire conversation with a stranger, thinking he was someone else. Her face flushed again as she thought about it. Was he really as nice as she remembered? Or had she imagined it? She tried to shake it off. It didn't matter. She'd never see him again. It was just another awkward moment to add to her long list of unfortunate encounters. Her phone buzzed on the table, interrupting her thoughts. She stared at the screen for a moment before picking it up. It was a message from Jenny. Asterisk, hey, how's it going? Don't worry about last night. It's just a funny mix-up. But seriously, tell me more about this guy. Was he cute? Asterisk, Emma sighed, a small smile tugging at her lips. She typed back quickly. Asterisk, ugh, don't even ask. I sat at the wrong table. Had a whole conversation with some guy I thought was Kevin. He was nice though, in a weird way. But that's it. Never going to see him again. Asterisk, she put her phone down, trying to focus on something else. Maybe she could get some work done, but the thought of the stranger lingered in her mind. Later that day, as Emma was walking to her shift at the diner, her phone buzzed again. It was an email. She opened it, and her heart skipped a beat when she saw the subject. Invitation to VIP Gala, an exclusive event. It was from a prestigious event company. She stared at the screen in disbelief. No way. It was an invitation for a charity gala. It had to be some kind of mistake. She wasn't the type of person who got invited to events like this. Still, curiosity got the better of her, and she clicked the link. Her eyes widened when she saw the guest list. Liam Parker. The name hit her like a ton of bricks. It was the man from last night. No way. She couldn't believe it. He was someone important, a tech millionaire, and she had talked to him as if he were just another guy. And now, she had an invitation to an event where he would be. Her stomach churned with nerves. Should she go? Should she decline? After all, it wasn't like she had a place there. But then, an idea struck her. What if she went? What if this was her chance to meet him again, to apologize for the awkwardness of their first encounter? She bit her lip, debating with herself for a few moments before deciding. Emma showed up to the gala that evening, feeling completely out of place. She had done her best to dress up, but nothing could hide the nervousness that gripped her. She could hardly believe she was even here, among all these well-dressed people. The venue was breathtaking. Gold chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and the floors were polished to a shine. Waiters glided through the crowd, offering trays of delicate hors d'oeuvres. She stood by the door for a moment, trying to figure out where to go, when she spotted a familiar face in the crowd. It was him, Liam Parker. He stood across the room, talking to a group of well-dressed people. She froze for a moment, unsure of what to do. Her heart was racing. Do I go up to him? She thought. What would I even say? Before she could decide, he turned, his eyes meeting hers for a split second. A faint recognition flickered in his gaze, and he smiled. Her stomach flipped. He walked toward her, his expression warm, but there was something else in his eyes, something that made her feel even more out of place. Emma, Liam said, his voice smooth but warm. I didn't expect to see you here. What a pleasant surprise. He offered her a hand, and she hesitated before shaking it. She wasn't sure what to say. She hadn't planned for this moment, hadn't thought about what to do if they crossed paths again. "I didn't think you'd come," he added, his smile never wavering. Emma forced a smile. "I didn't think I'd be invited," she admitted, her voice shaking slightly. "I'm not really this kind of person. But, I saw your name on the guest list, and I thought, well, maybe this is my chance to apologize." He raised an eyebrow. "Apologize? For what?" he asked, clearly confused. "For last night," she said quickly. "For sitting at the wrong table. I was a little embarrassed, and I'm not really good at these kinds of situations." Liam laughed softly, and to Emma's surprise, it was genuine. "There's no need to apologize," he said. "It was a mistake. And honestly, I thought you were funny." He glanced around the room, then looked back at her. "You seemed different." In a good way. Her heart skipped a beat at his words. Different? She had no idea what he meant, but something in the way he said it made her feel like maybe, just maybe, there was something more to that awkward encounter than she had initially thought. And then, before she could respond, he did something that took her completely by surprise. "Would you like to join me for a drink?" he asked, his voice casual, but with a note of sincerity in it. She hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Sure." As they walked toward the bar, Emma felt her nerves settle just a little. Maybe this night wouldn't be so bad after all. Maybe, just maybe, it was the start of something unexpected. Stay tuned for the next part of this story. As the night wore on, Emma found herself more and more at ease in Liam's company. The awkwardness of their first encounter was long forgotten as they stood together by the bar, chatting like old friends. Emma had expected to feel out of place, but something about Liam's calm presence made her feel grounded. She laughed at his jokes, enjoyed his stories about the tech world, and slowly began to let go of the anxiety that had gripped her since she walked into the gala. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen, not just for her circumstances, but for who she truly was. "So, tell me more about you," Liam said, his tone light, but with an edge of curiosity. "You mentioned wanting to open an art studio. What's your story?" Emma took a sip of her drink, her eyes lighting up at the mention of her passion. "Well, it's been a dream of mine for years," she began, her voice growing more animated. "I've always loved painting. I know it's not the most practical path, but I've always believed in following what makes you happy. But lately, it's been hard to keep up with everything. Between my shifts at the diner and keeping up with rent, it feels like I'm barely staying afloat." She looked down at her drink, feeling vulnerable for a moment, but the words kept flowing. "Still, I try to keep going. It's the one thing I'm good at, and one day, I hope to open a small gallery, just for my art. No big dreams, but something that's truly mine." Liam listened intently, his expression thoughtful. "That's amazing," he said after a beat, his voice sincere. "You've got passion, and that's worth more than anything. I can tell you're not someone who gives up easily." He paused, his eyes softening as he studied her. Emma felt a warmth spread through her at his words, and for a brief moment, she felt like maybe, just maybe, someone saw her for more than just her struggles. They stood there in silence for a few moments, the noise of the party around them fading into the background as they shared a quiet understanding. It was in that moment that Emma realized how much she had underestimated this evening. She had thought it would be another night of awkwardness, of feeling invisible among the elite. But here she was, having an actual conversation with a man who, despite his wealth and status, didn't treat her like a stranger. And that, in itself, felt like a small victory. But before Emma could respond, a voice interrupted their conversation. "Liam, there you are," a woman said, her tone smooth and professional. Emma turned to see a well-dressed woman standing beside them, a tight smile on her face. "We need you for the next part of the program," the woman continued. Liam glanced at Emma, giving her a small smile. "I'm sorry, I need to step away for a bit. But, please, enjoy the rest of the evening. I'll catch up with you later." Emma nodded, not sure what to say. She watched as Liam walked away with the woman, her thoughts drifting back to the strange turn of events that had led her to this point. She hadn't expected to meet anyone at the gala, let alone someone like Liam. But now that she had, she couldn't help but feel a little curious. What was it about him that made her feel so comfortable? And more importantly, why did she feel this connection, this pull, even though they had only just met? She stood there for a few moments, lost in thought. when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "I see you've been talking to Liam," Jenny said, grinning as she approached. "I knew there was something between you two." Emma rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a smile. "It's not like that," she said, though she wasn't quite sure what it was. "We were just talking." Jenny raised an eyebrow. "Sure, just talking." "Uh-huh, I'm sure." She chuckled and nudged Emma. "You never know, girl. Maybe this is the start of something." Emma didn't have time to respond as Jenny was already walking away, but the words stayed with her. Maybe this is the start of something. Was it? Or was she just fooling herself? As the night came to a close, Emma found herself once again standing near the entrance, her coat draped over her arm. She had been so caught up in the evening, she hadn't even realized how much time had passed. She looked around the room, her eyes searching for Liam, but he was nowhere to be seen. The gala had ended, and people were beginning to leave. Just as she was about to turn to leave, she heard a voice behind her. "Emma, wait up," Liam called out, his figure emerging from the crowd. She turned, a mix of surprise and hope rising in her chest. "Liam?" she asked, her heart beating a little faster. He smiled, stepping closer. "I didn't want to leave without saying goodbye. I know this night wasn't what either of us expected, but I'm glad you came." Emma's breath caught in her throat as he looked at her, his gaze soft and genuine. "I'm glad I came too," she said quietly. Liam extended his hand toward her. "I'd love to see you again, Emma. How about we grab coffee sometime? Maybe you can tell me more about your art. I'm genuinely interested." For a moment, Emma hesitated. This was real. This was a chance she never thought she'd get. And despite all her fears and doubts, she realized something. She wasn't going to let this moment slip away. "I'd like that," she said, smiling as she took his hand. Stay tuned for the next part of this story. The next few days passed in a blur for Emma. The initial shock of meeting Liam at the gala faded, but the memory of their conversation lingered in her mind. She tried to focus on her work and her art, but every time she picked up a brush or looked at her sketchbook, her thoughts wandered back to him. Why had he asked to meet again? What was it about her that made him interested? She found herself questioning everything, unsure if this was just another fleeting moment or if something real could come from it. Then, one afternoon, her phone buzzed. She stared at the screen, her heart skipping a beat when she saw Liam's name. It's him. She had been expecting it, but now that it was here, she still felt that familiar flutter of nerves. "Hey Emma, it's Liam. I hope you're doing well. I was thinking about our conversation the other night, and I'd really like to see you again. How about we meet for lunch tomorrow? I know this great place. Nothing fancy, just good food and better conversation. Let me know what you think." Emma's fingers hovered over the screen, her mind racing. Should she go? It felt so different this time. There was something in his words that made her believe he was serious. She'd gotten so used to people making promises that they never kept, but with Liam, she wasn't sure. She was terrified of letting herself hope again. After a few moments, she typed a quick response, trying to keep her emotions in check. "I'd like that. See you tomorrow." The next day, she arrived at the cafe a little early, her nerves buzzing with uncertainty. The place Liam had chosen was quaint, tucked away on a quiet street with warm lighting and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. She sat at a table by the window, fidgeting with her napkin, glancing up every time the door opened. She hadn't expected to feel this anxious. Was this just a casual lunch? Or was this something more? When Liam walked in, his presence immediately drew her attention. He wore a casual jacket, no expensive suits or polished shoes. Just a man who looked like he was there to enjoy a simple meal. He smiled when he saw her, his expression warm but relaxed. "Hey, Emma," he greeted her, his voice steady. "Glad you could make it." "Of course," Emma replied, standing up to greet him. She smiled, but her nerves were still on edge. "It's good to see you again." They sat down, and after a few moments of small talk, Emma couldn't help but ask, "So, what made you reach out? I mean, after the gala, I thought maybe you'd forget about me." Liam leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving hers. "I don't forget easily," he said, his tone sincere. "And honestly, I've been thinking about what you said at the gala. You're different, Emma. There's something about you that's refreshing. You're not like the people I usually deal with." He paused as if searching for the right words. "You're real." Emma blinked, feeling a mix of surprise and something else, something she wasn't ready to admit. Real? Was that how he saw her? Not as some random woman he met at a party, but as someone who had an impact. The thought made her heart flutter, but she quickly pushed it aside. She looked down at her hands, suddenly feeling shy. I don't know if I'm that special, she said quietly, almost to herself. Liam smiled, leaning in slightly. You are, he said softly. I don't know what it is, but when I'm with you, it feels like I can be myself. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people talking. And I like that. Emma's heart skipped a beat, her breath catching in her throat. She had heard those words before, maybe not in the same way, but it still stirred something deep inside her. She had been waiting for someone to see her for who she truly was. And here Liam was, doing just that. They spent the rest of the lunch talking about everything and nothing. About her dreams of opening an art studio, about his work in the tech world, about their favorite books and childhood memories. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was talking to someone who wasn't just interested in her for what she could do for them. She felt heard. As the lunch came to an end, Liam stood up, offering her a smile. I really enjoyed this, Emma. I know we've just met, but I'd like to see where this goes. Maybe we could do this again sometime. Emma's heart skipped once more, and for the first time, she didn't hesitate. I'd like that too, she said, her voice steady. She wasn't sure where this was heading, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid to find out. As they walked out of the cafe together, Liam's hand brushed against hers, and for that brief moment, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something real. Stay tuned for the next part of this story. As the days went by, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing. Her interactions with Liam were no longer just casual conversations. They were becoming something more. Every time they met, it felt more natural, more comfortable. And every time he smiled at her, she felt something stirring deep inside. But at the same time, a part of her hesitated. She had never allowed herself to get too close to someone, not since she lost so much. She told herself to keep her guard up, not to let herself fall too hard. But the more time she spent with Liam, the harder it became to ignore the connection between them. One evening, after they'd spent the day at an art exhibit Emma had been dying to see, they found themselves walking side by side down a quiet street, the cool night air wrapping around them. The city lights flickered above them, and the streets were relatively empty, save for a few people making their way home. Emma couldn't help but glance at Liam as they walked, noticing the easy way he was at ease around her. He didn't seem to care about her past, her struggles. He was just with her, and that felt different, better than anything she had ever experienced. I'm glad you came today, Liam said, breaking the comfortable silence between them. I've never really been to an art exhibit before, but I'm happy you showed me your world. I enjoyed it more than I expected. He smiled at her, his eyes soft with sincerity. Emma smiled back, her cheeks flushing slightly. I'm glad you liked it. It means a lot to me, she said. She hesitated for a moment, then added, I never thought I'd meet someone who would actually want to learn about this stuff. Most people I know, they don't get it. Liam looked at her, his expression gentle. I think people need to stop judging things by how much money or status they bring. Art is about more than just what's valuable. It's about how it makes you feel. And I get that now. I think I've always known, but I never had the chance to really experience it. His words hit her deeper than she expected. For so long, she had been focused on survival, on getting by. But Liam made her realize there was more to life than just paying bills and keeping her head above water. There was beauty in the world, and she didn't have to face it alone. They reached a small park near Emma's apartment, the soft glow of street lamps casting long shadows across the cobblestone path. Liam stopped and turned to her, his eyes locking with hers. Emma, he said, his voice serious yet tender. I've been thinking a lot about you. About us. And I don't want to rush anything, but I think I'd like to see where this goes. I'm not in a hurry, but I think we have something special here. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as his words sank in. She felt a wave of emotion rush over her. Fear, excitement, hope. Could this be real? Could someone like him really feel something for someone like her? She opened her mouth to respond, but stopped herself, unsure of what to say. What if she was wrong? What if it was all just an illusion? Liam seemed to sense her hesitation. He gently reached out, taking her hand in his. I don't want you to feel pressured, he said softly. I just want you to know that I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. I care about you, Emma. I think I've known that since the moment we met. For a long moment, Emma stood there, holding his hand, feeling the warmth of his touch. It was all so new to her. She had spent so long keeping people at arm's length, afraid of getting hurt again. But something about Liam made her want to take a chance, to let her guard down, even if just for a moment. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I care about you too, Liam. I'm scared." Her voice trembled slightly as she confessed the truth she had been hiding. Liam smiled gently, his thumb brushing the back of her hand. "I'm not going anywhere, Emma. We'll take it slow, but we'll figure this out together. No pressure, no expectations, just us." Her heart felt lighter at his words, the fear in her chest starting to melt away. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something real, something beautiful. As they stood there, hands intertwined, the world seemed to fade away. Emma realized that, for the first time in a long time, she wasn't alone. And that, in itself, felt like the greatest gift of all. Stay tuned for the next part of this story. As the weeks passed, Emma and Liam continued to spend more time together, and with every meeting, Emma found herself more and more drawn to him. They shared late-night talks over coffee, quiet walks in the park, and visits to small art galleries that Emma loved. Liam seemed to fit into her world so effortlessly, and he made her feel like she was exactly where she belonged. But no matter how comfortable she felt, there was always a nagging doubt in the back of her mind. She had been burned before, and she couldn't ignore the fear that she might be setting herself up for disappointment again. One afternoon, Emma was walking to the diner for her shift when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. "Hey, I've been thinking. How about dinner tonight? Just the two of us. I have something I'd like to talk to you about." Her heart skipped a beat. She had no idea what this was about, but there was something in his words that made her nervous. Was this a conversation about their future? Was he about to say something that would change everything? She didn't know what she was expecting, but the uncertainty made her feel uneasy. That evening, she arrived at the restaurant Liam had chosen, a small but elegant place tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. As soon as she stepped inside, the soft glow of the lights and the faint sound of a piano playing in the background made her feel like she had entered a different world. Liam was already seated at a table by the window, and when he saw her, he stood up with a warm smile. He greeted her as usual, but there was something different in the air tonight, an unspoken tension between them. They sat down, and for the first few moments, the conversation was light, almost too light. Emma found herself asking about his day, about his work, about anything she could think of to avoid addressing the feeling that hung over them. But Liam seemed lost in thought, his usually steady demeanor a little more distracted. Finally, after a few moments of silence, Liam cleared his throat and looked at her seriously. "Emma," he began, his voice calm but firm. "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, and I need to be honest with you. I don't want to hide anything anymore." Emma's heart raced as she looked at him, waiting for him to continue. Her mind spun with possibilities. What was he about to say? Was this it? Was he going to tell her that he couldn't be with her, that it was all a mistake? Liam took a deep breath, his gaze never leaving hers. "I've been carrying around a lot of stuff, things I haven't told you. And it's not fair to you. I'm not the kind of guy who usually opens up about personal things, but with you, I feel like I can. The truth is, I've been afraid. Afraid of letting anyone get close, afraid of feeling vulnerable." Emma's chest tightened, and she could feel her heart pounding. She wasn't sure if she should say something or just let him speak. She reached across the table, taking his hand gently in hers. Liam's thumb brushed over her hand as he spoke again. "I've been scared of letting myself fall for someone, and even more scared of losing them. But I know that I can't keep running from it. I care about you, Emma. A lot. More than I thought was possible." His voice faltered slightly, as if the weight of his confession was heavier than he had anticipated. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected this, not like this. She had always been the one who kept her distance, never letting anyone get too close. But Liam was different. And now, hearing him say these words, she felt her own walls beginning to crumble. She squeezed his hand, looking into his eyes. "Liam, I don't know what to say. I've been scared too. I've been so focused on not getting hurt that I almost missed out on something real. But I care about you too. I don't know where this is going, but I don't want to lose it either." She paused, taking a deep breath. "Maybe we're both scared, but maybe that's okay." Liam smiled, his eyes softening with relief. "I'm glad you feel that way," he said quietly. "Because I want to be with you. I don't want to run anymore. I know it's not going to be easy, but I want to try. Together. Emma felt a weight lift from her shoulders as she looked at him. Maybe it wasn't perfect. Maybe there were still uncertainties, but this, what they had, felt real. It was messy, it was complicated, but it was worth it. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she could take that leap. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of laughter and conversation as they slowly opened up to each other, sharing things they had kept buried for so long. Emma realized that this wasn't just about them finding each other. It was about healing, about trusting again. As they walked outside together, Liam turned to her with a smile. "I'm glad we talked tonight," he said, his voice warm and reassuring. "I think this is the start of something good." Emma looked up at him, feeling the warmth of his hand in hers. "Yeah," she said softly. "I think so too." Stay tuned for the next part of this story. As the weeks went on, Emma and Liam's relationship grew stronger. They spent their days getting to know each other better, sharing pieces of their pasts that had been buried for so long. For Emma, it felt like a new chapter in her life, one she had never expected to happen. She had always kept a safe distance from people, convinced that getting too close would only lead to disappointment. But with Liam, everything felt different. He made her feel valued, not for her struggles or what she could offer, but for who she truly was. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe in something more. She didn't expect the connection to grow so deep, so quickly. Yet, every time she looked into his eyes, she felt something pull her in even further. But despite the growing closeness between them, Emma couldn't shake a nagging feeling. A small part of her still questioned whether this was real. Was Liam truly in this for the long run, or was he just another person who would eventually walk away? The doubts lingered in her mind, but she kept pushing them aside, convincing herself that everything would work out. She didn't want to ruin the happiness she had found with him, especially now that things were starting to feel so right. One evening, as they sat together at a small cafe in the city, enjoying a quiet dinner, Emma noticed that Liam seemed preoccupied. His usual easy smile wasn't quite there, and his gaze kept drifting off to the side as if something was on his mind. Liam cleared his throat, setting down his fork. "Emma, there's something I've been meaning to tell you. It's about my family." Emma looked up at him, her heart skipping a beat. She had known he came from money, from a world far removed from her own, but they had never really talked about it. The world of high society was something Liam rarely discussed, and Emma had never pressed him. But now, it seemed like he was ready to share something important. "What about your family?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with curiosity. Liam hesitated for a moment, his fingers tapping nervously on the edge of his glass. "My family? Well, they've never really approved of my choices. They think I should be more involved in the family business, that I should be more like my father. But I've always wanted something different. I've always wanted to do things my own way, and that's why I haven't really been close to them. I didn't want to be forced into a life that wasn't mine." Emma listened carefully, understanding the weight of his words. She could see the conflict in his eyes, the way he was torn between family expectations and his own desires. She had been there, too, struggling to follow her own path despite what others thought. "I get it," Emma said softly. "I've had my own battles with expectations, with what people think I should be. But I've learned that, at the end of the day, the only person I need to please is myself." Liam smiled at her, his eyes softening with appreciation. "Exactly. And I've been thinking. I want you to meet my family. I know it's a big step, but I think it's time. I want them to see you the way I do. You're important to me, Emma, and I don't want to hide you anymore." Emma's heart fluttered at his words. She hadn't expected this conversation, but now that it was happening, she felt a mix of excitement and fear. Meeting his family meant stepping into a world that she had always kept at arm's length. But Liam was offering her something real, something that meant more than just a fleeting connection. It was a chance to be a part of his life in a way she hadn't imagined. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice tentative. Liam reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I'm sure. You've become a part of my life, Emma, and I want them to see that. I don't want anything to hold us back." As they sat there, holding hands across the table, Emma realized that, despite the uncertainty she had felt in the past, she was ready for this. She was ready to step into a new chapter of her life, one that was full of risks but also full of promise. Stay tuned for the next part of this story. The day had finally arrived. Emma was both excited and nervous. She had been preparing for this moment ever since Liam had mentioned introducing her to his family. The thought of meeting the people who had shaped his life, who held so much influence over him, made her stomach churn with anxiety. But it also filled her with a sense of anticipation. Liam had made it clear that this was important to him, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt ready to face the challenges ahead. They had been through so much together already, and now, this was the next step. She stood in front of her closet, carefully choosing an outfit that was both elegant and understated. She didn't want to overdo it, but she didn't want to underdress either. After a few minutes, she settled on a simple black dress that fell just below her knees, paired with a cardigan. It was comfortable, classic, and just the right balance. She took a deep breath, checking her reflection one last time before grabbing her coat and heading out the door. When she arrived at the restaurant, she felt her nerves kick in. Liam was waiting for her outside, a reassuring smile on his face when he saw her. He was dressed in a sharp suit, his hair neatly combed. He looked effortlessly handsome, and for a moment, Emma felt a wave of gratitude for the man who had brought her this far. "You look beautiful," Liam said, his voice soft and genuine. "Are you ready?" Emma smiled, though her stomach still felt tight. "As ready as I'll ever be," she said, her voice shaking just a little. "I'm a little nervous, to be honest." Liam squeezed her hand gently. "I know, but they're going to love you. Just be yourself, and everything will be fine." They entered the restaurant, and Emma immediately felt the weight of the moment. The space was elegant, but not overly grand. It was cozy, filled with soft lighting and the low murmur of conversations. At a large table in the back, Liam's family was already seated, their eyes immediately locking onto him as he walked in. The moment he appeared, the conversation paused, and Emma felt every set of eyes turn in her direction. "Mom, Dad, this is Emma," Liam said, his voice confident as he introduced her to his parents. "Emma, this is my mom, Elizabeth, and my dad, Richard." Elizabeth, a woman with a warm smile and elegant features, stood up first. She reached out and gave Emma a firm handshake. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Emma. Liam has told us so much about you." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had expected some kind of formality, but Elizabeth's kindness immediately put her at ease. "It's lovely to meet you both," Emma said, trying to steady her nerves. She looked at Richard, who was watching her with an intense gaze. He was older, with a stern face and salt and pepper hair. Richard gave her a nod. "Nice to meet you, Emma. We're glad you could join us tonight." His tone was polite, but Emma couldn't help but feel that he was sizing her up, judging her every move. The evening unfolded with polite conversation, though Emma could sense the tension between herself and Liam's father. Liam's mother, on the other hand, was warm and engaging, asking about Emma's work and her art. She was curious, genuinely interested in learning about Emma's life and passions. As the night wore on, Emma began to relax, but Richard's coldness still lingered in the back of her mind. It wasn't that he was rude. He was just distant, a little too quiet. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that he was holding something back, that he was waiting for her to make a mistake. After dinner, as they were finishing their drinks, Richard finally spoke up. "So, Emma," he said, his voice steady but sharp, "what is it that you hope to achieve with your art? I'm just curious. It's not often we see people make a career out of something so subjective." Emma's heart raced at his question, but she took a deep breath and answered calmly. "I believe art has the power to connect people, to make them see the world differently. For me, it's not about fame or fortune. It's about expression, about telling stories that matter." Richard studied her for a long moment, and Emma felt the weight of his gaze. Finally, he nodded. "I can respect that," he said, before turning his attention to Liam. "Well, it's clear you're both very different from what I expected." Emma wasn't sure if that was a compliment or a criticism, but she didn't let it bother her. She knew this was a big step, and no matter what Richard thought, it wouldn't change how she felt about Liam. After all, she wasn't here to win anyone's approval. She was here for Liam. As the evening came to a close, Liam walked her to the door, his hand gently resting on her back. "You did great," he said, his voice soft. "I know it wasn't easy." Emma smiled up at him, feeling a sense of accomplishment despite the tension. "Thanks for being there with me," she said quietly. "I know things aren't perfect, but I think we're getting there." Liam nodded, his eyes sincere. "We'll get there. Together." Stay tuned for the next part of this story. Weeks passed, and Emma and Liam's relationship continued to grow stronger. They had both overcome so much already, Emma with her fears and doubts, and Liam with his own personal struggles. After the dinner with his family, things had shifted. Though his father remained distant, Emma had started to realize that she couldn't control everyone's opinion. What mattered was the bond she shared with Liam, and that was becoming more and more important with every passing day. One evening, Liam took Emma to the park where they had shared one of their first long walks together. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the city, and Emma couldn't help but feel like everything had come full circle. They sat on the same bench where they had talked about their hopes, their dreams, and their fears. Emma turned to Liam, a soft smile playing on her lips. "I can't believe how far we've come," she said quietly, her gaze drifting to the horizon. "It feels like just yesterday we were meeting by mistake, and now, here we are." Liam chuckled, his eyes soft as he looked at her. "I know. It's crazy to think about. But I'm glad we're here." He reached over, taking her hand in his. "There's no one else I'd rather be with, Emma. You've changed my life." Emma squeezed his hand, her heart swelling with warmth. "I feel the same way," she said softly. "I never imagined I'd be here, in this place, with you. But I'm glad I took that chance." There was a long silence between them, filled only with the sound of the wind and the distant hum of the city. Emma's mind wandered to the future, to the possibilities that lay ahead. She knew things wouldn't always be easy, but she also knew that she wasn't alone anymore. And that thought gave her more peace than she had ever expected. Finally, Liam broke the silence, his voice low and filled with emotion. "Emma, I've been thinking a lot about us. About everything we've been through, everything we've shared. And I know we've had our challenges, but I don't want to go another day without saying this." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I love you." Emma's heart skipped a beat. The words, though expected, still took her by surprise. She turned to face him, her eyes wide with emotion. "Liam, I love you too," she said, her voice shaking slightly. She hadn't said it out loud yet, hadn't allowed herself to fully admit it to herself until this moment. But now that she had, the words felt as natural as breathing. Liam smiled, a soft, genuine smile that made Emma's heart flutter. "I know it hasn't been easy, but I'm ready. Ready to face whatever comes next with you by my side." Emma leaned in, pressing her forehead against his. "Me too. I'm ready for whatever comes next." She pulled back slightly, looking into his eyes. "We've already been through so much, and I know there's so much more to come. But with you, I feel like I can handle it all." For a moment, they sat there, simply enjoying each other's presence, the weight of their words hanging in the air between them. The world around them seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of them, caught in a moment that felt timeless. As they stood to leave, Liam took Emma's hand in his once more, their fingers intertwined, stronger than ever. "We've got this," he said quietly. "Together." "Together," Emma echoed, a smile spreading across her face. And with that, they walked off into the future, hand in hand, ready to face whatever challenges and joys awaited them, knowing that as long as they had each other, they could conquer anything. Stay tuned for more stories like this one.